History is almost never about just one big thing happening in isolation. It's usually, well, it's more like a chain reaction, a series of dominoes, right? One falls, then the next, and the next, until suddenly the whole world looks completely different. And today we're going to trace one of the most incredible, most consequential chain reactions in all of history.
I mean, think about that for a second. How does a single empire's call for help, just a request for some soldiers, spiral into a 200-year global conflict? A conflict that completely reshapes continents and cultures. It sounds crazy, right? Well, to figure out how it all happened, we can't start in Europe. We've got to go way, way east.
So here we are, in the Middle East. Our story starts with this incredibly powerful and sophisticated empire, the Abbasid Caliphate. For centuries, this was the center of the world. But by the time we get to the 10th century, things are starting to shift. And it is so important to get this picture right. We're not talking about some undeveloped backwater. No way. The Abbasid Caliphate was this thriving cosmopolitan hub. I'm talking about a golden age of science, art, and trade that connected people all the way from China to Africa. I mean, by any measure you can think of, this was a global superpower. But, and this is the key, right here, from the outside, the empire looked absolutely magnificent. But underneath it all, well, trying to hold together a territory that huge with all these different cultures and people, that was creating some serious internal strain. The cracks were definitely starting to show. So, okay, where are these cracks? Well, for one, you had political rivals like the Fatimids just constantly chipping away at their power. And internally, to make sure everyone stayed loyal, the Caliph started to rely on this army of enslaved Turkic soldiers called Mamluks. Now, they were powerful, for sure, but also really dangerous. It's a risky move. So as all this pressure starts to build, the caliph's actual direct control begins to shrink. The giant was starting to stumble. And right into this growing power vacuum steps a brand new, incredibly formidable force, the Seljuk Turks. And let me tell you, their arrival wasn't just going to shift the balance of power. Oh no, it was going to shatter it completely. Now, this next part is super important to understand. The Seljuk leaders, they didn't try to get rid of the Caliph, who was the religious head of Islam. Instead, they took on a new title for themselves, Sultan, which literally means the authority. It was a crystal clear signal, right? They were saying, hey, we've got the real military power here. The Caliph, he can keep his religious title, but we are running the show now. And boy, did they make their presence felt. Right away, they became the new protectors of the caliphate, pushing back all those rivals. But the biggest move, the one that really matters for our story, is when they turned their military might against another major power, the Byzantine Empire. And the blow they delivered, it was absolutely crushing. Okay, let's follow the chain. That's the next domino. That devastating blow to the Byzantines, it sent massive shockwaves all the way through their capital, Constantinople. And it forced the emperor to make a call that would change the world forever. Just try to put yourself in his shoes for a minute. You're the Byzantine emperor. You've just lost a massive chunk of territory and a ton of prestige to this new Seljuk power. I mean, your back is completely against the wall. You need soldiers, and you need them yesterday. So what do? You look west to your fellow Christians for help. But here's where it gets really interesting. See, the Christianity of the East and the West, they weren't exactly on speaking terms. Just a few decades earlier, the Great Schism of 1054 had literally split the church in two. So the emperor in Constantinople was basically asking his direct religious rival, the Pope in Rome, for military aid. Talk about a desperate, high-stakes gamble. So what was the emperor hoping for? Probably a few regiments of elite mercenaries, just enough to help push the Seljuks back. But what he got instead was something else entirely. Something so much bigger, so much more chaotic, and frankly, more world-changing than anyone could have possibly imagined. Yeah, the Pope didn't just send a few soldiers. He unleashed an absolute firestorm. And to really get why, we need to take a look at what was going on in Western Europe at this very moment. Because it turns out it was a society that was perfectly primed and ready for a call like this. I mean, you really have to see this as a kind of perfect storm brewing in Europe. You've got the papacy flexing its muscles, trying to get more power over kings, and they see this as a golden opportunity to unite a totally fractured Christendom, under their leadership, of course. At the same time, the church itself is going through these major reforms, getting more organized. And then, and this is so critical, you have the idea of chivalry starting to take hold. It's this code that basically gives a wholly divine purpose to what knights do best, which is fighting. So Europe wasn't just able to answer the call, it was eager to. And just like that, the legend was born. It's the image we all kind of have in our heads, right? Heroic knights in shining armor, passionate preachers like Peter the Hermit, leading this pure, noble, holy quest to reclaim the Holy Land. But you know what's coming, right? The reality was, well, it was a lot messier, way more complex. You had bigotry, ignorance, raw political ambition. That romantic legend we all know, it's really only a tiny piece of the story. The whole legacy of the Crusades is just filled with contradictions. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, they absolutely stimulated trade and blew up the Pope's influence across Europe. But on the other hand, they led to these horrific massacres of innocent people. They even led to the betrayal of other Christians. I mean, look at the sacking of Constantinople in the Fourth Crusade. And so often these wars were really just driven by cold, hard political or economic goals. It was never, ever as simple as the stories make it sound. So, okay, after 200 years of this constant back and forth conflict, what was the result? Well, the entire map, everything from Europe to the Middle East, had been completely redrawn. The world had been fundamentally, permanently reshaped.
Every single one of those dominoes we talked about, the Abbasid decline, the rise of the Seljuks, that desperate call from Byzantium, the explosion of papal power in Europe, all of that created the world we've just been discussing. But here's the thing. They also set the stage for something even bigger. And this is the final incredible twist to the whole story, as absolutely massive as the entire Age of Crusades was. It was all just a prelude. The biggest, most profound, most world-shattering change was still gathering steam way out east on the steppes of Inner Asia.
Now, that quote you're seeing? That's not about a pope or a sultan or an emperor. It's about a man who was once enslaved as a child, Genghis Khan. The rise of the Mongol Empire, that would be the final biggest domino of all. It would sweep aside the entire world of the Crusades and truly lay the foundations for the modern age. And it just kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What domino is falling right now that we can't even see it?